Before we get into this, really quick, I just wanted to give a huge thank you to Apologia for including my video in his Skeptic Videos in 2023 playlist. I have been a huge fan of his content for a while now, and I am overwhelmed and exceedingly grateful for having made it onto his list. If you're here because you found me through Apologia's playlist, hello, welcome. If you found me some other way and you haven't watched Apologia's videos yet, you really should go and check him out. His content has made a huge difference in my life, and it helped me make sense of a lot of things when I first came out of my faith. His videos are well-researched, his points are coherent and well-spoken, and his mouth actually moves when he speaks. I'm very envious. I'll include a link to the playlist in the description. Please do subscribe to his channel, and you should really check out all of the other creators in the playlist as well. Now, onto the video. If you are trying to discover the truth of anything, I believe the best way to go about it is to start out with as few presuppositions as possible. Imagine, if you will, that you have 3 children, and you bring home a box of donuts, and then some of the donuts go missing. If you want to figure out which child stole the donuts, there are a couple of ways you could go about doing this. You can zero in on one child in particular, because stealing donuts just seems like the sort of thing that he would do. And you can tear his room apart looking for crumbs, and check to see if his fingers are sticky, and comb through his hair until you find a single piece of debris that might be a crumb, and then be like, "Ha! I knew it was you!" That's a fine enough way to justify your pre-existing conclusion. Or you can forget that Bartholomew was always your least favorite child, and you can check around the box of donuts and look for footprints or for a trail of crumbs and just follow the evidence wherever it leads. I think that's the most honest way to go about discovering the truth. If you are really serious about finding out what the truth is, and not just looking for reasons to reinforce a pre-existing worldview, then you should forget about what you want to believe, let the evidence speak for itself, and forsake your own presuppositions. It should come as no surprise, then, that there is an entire field of Christian apologetics called presuppositionalism. This form of apologetics is, in my opinion, a hallmark of intellectual dishonesty. It is among the laziest tactics used in a line of work that, from my point of view, already tends to lean heavily upon dishonesty. I don't like to throw the word dishonest around lightly. Even if I find someone's beliefs to be completely unjustified, nothing but empty assertions, I would generally still avoid calling them dishonest. It's a harsh word, and usually, no matter how unhinged and how nutter-butter, potato-level ignorant an argument may be, I am still willing to believe that the person presenting it is actually attempting to convey something that they honestly, sincerely believe. But there are a number of presuppositionalist apologists that make it very difficult for me to extend them this level of charity. They utilize scripts that tend to defend a single, circular argument. Some of them add additional elements, such as tearing apart straw men that do not represent the views of their victims, and demanding simple yes or no answers to their questions in an attempt to deny their victims the opportunity to provide a clear definition of what they actually believe. The way I see it, the only reasons that this facade of an argument hasn't been laughed off of the public stage and into oblivion yet is that the apologists presenting it are professional speakers. They tend to be very charismatic, though some of them aren't, and the scripts that they use are fine-tuned to grant them control of the conversation, and sometimes to twist the words of their opponents in an attempt to misrepresent their views. So now we're going to go over the basic script that I tend to hear in live debates and even in my own personal life, and after we've covered what the presuppositionalist argument is, we are going to go over how one might go about responding to it. So the script often goes something like this. Can you say with absolute certainty that it is impossible that a God exists? Well, there's no evidence indicating that a God exists. Is it impossible? Well, without any reason to believe that such a being... So you can't say with absolute certainty that it's impossible? Well, not with absolute certainty, no, but I don't see any point... Please don't talk over me. Sorry. Out of all of the information that exists in the universe, how much do you know? You mean as like a percentage, or how would you like me to quantify? Out of the, say, 99.999% of all knowledge in the universe that you don't have, is it possible that there may be something out there that contradicts the 0.001% that you think you know? Well, I'm sure science is going to keep on making new discoveries, and that our understanding... So you could be wrong about everything that you know. Well, clearly not everything. Is it possible that we are living in the Matrix right now? Excuse me? If we were living in the Matrix right now, and everything that you perceive was part of an elaborate deception meant to keep you oblivious to the fact that you were in the Matrix, would there be any way that you could use science or observations to prove that you were in the Matrix? In that hypothetical, no, but you also couldn't prove that God exists. So what you're telling me is that all of your evidence for the age of the Earth and transitional fossils could all be part of an illusion. You're telling me that you can't actually know anything. But in this hypothetical scenario, you couldn't know that God exists either. No, I can know that, because my understanding of reality is built upon the Word of God, which is the basis of all understanding and truth. But if we're in the Matrix and we really can't know anything, then you can't even know what the Word of God is. But I don't believe that we're living in the Matrix. That's your worldview. Generally, that's all that the presuppositionalist argument is, an unfounded assertion that without God you can't know anything, and a circular argument that the apologist knows what truth is because they believe in God, and that God is the source of all truth, and that they know that their beliefs about God being the source of all truth are true because they are based upon God, who is the source of all truth. Some of them do like to spice things up a bit by using archaic terminology or by name-dropping philosophers in an attempt to bestow an air of competence upon themselves and to fatten up the flimsy skeleton upon which their argument is built. So let's pick this argument apart, go over why it's absurd, and talk about not only what I would consider to be the correct answers to these questions, but also how one should phrase them to try to avoid having some of the more dishonest apologists put words in your mouth. The best way to answer any of these questions is don't. Just run away. This argument is really not worth engaging with.
Don't talk to it, Mary. Don't encourage it.
If you have to engage with this argument, like if you are hearing it from people in your personal life or people that you work with and can't avoid discussing it, then let's go over how one might respond to this emaciated argument. Can you say with absolute certainty that it is impossible that a God exists? Two things. First of all, good job on shifting the burden of proof. Classic apologists. No, we can't say with absolute certainty that it's impossible that a God exists, any more than we can say with absolute certainty that the ghost of Alfred Hitchcock isn't standing in the corner right now doing the mashed potato. The apologist will typically demand a yes or no answer to this question, and may even imply that your failure to give a one-word answer to this malformed question is somehow dishonest on your part. But you have to make it clear that before you are willing to even entertain such an absurd possibility, first of all, the apologist would have to present some kind of evidence that ghosts are even real, and that Alfred Hitchcock is in fact in the room, and that he even knows how to dance the mashed potato. Second of all, notice the phrasing a God, as in any God. If you give a simple, honest no here, later, if the apologist switches to talking about the Christian God specifically, he may pretend that you have allowed that his God specifically is not impossible. So, in addition to mentioning the ghost of Alfred Hitchcock, or Russell's teapot, or the flying spaghetti monster, or whatever metaphor you choose to demonstrate that you will not shoulder the apologist's burden of proof, you would do well to clarify that even if you can't rule out the possibility of any God with absolute certainty, you can still rule out a God that is supposed to have created the world 6,000 years ago, flooded the entire earth in a single deluge 4,000 years ago, and had to sacrifice himself to save us from himself. Out of the, say, 99.999% of all knowledge in the universe that you don't have, is it possible that there may be something out there that contradicts the 0.001% that you think you know?
How the hell do I know what I don't know?
Here, the apologist attempts to turn our own honesty against us. A reasonable person is compelled to change his point of view whenever new evidence comes to light. The apologist, on the other hand, is under no such compulsion, and he is attempting to take your integrity and misrepresent it as being a sign of weakness. There are some things you can know. You can know that your own mind exists. I think a strong argument can also be made that my mind is not the only mind, that I am not some slumbering god dreaming all of reality into existence. I cannot write poetry. I have tried, and I just can't do it. My poetry sucks. Yet I have read some really beautiful poetry that I found to be quite moving. If I am the only mind, then I must have created every poem and every song that has ever existed, and I feel pretty comfortable saying that I didn't do that. And the absurdity of this argument, and the arrogance for him to ask you to throw out everything that goes against his preferred worldview on the simple chance that there might one day be a discovery that vindicates him. Motherfucker, where is it? Where is the evidence? Is it possible that we are living in the Matrix right now? This is not a hypothetical scenario presented in good faith for the two of you to explore together. This is a tactic meant to entice you to play along for the sole purpose of using it against you later and pretending that you are the one that is confused about what is real. Make it clear that you are only playing along, and that this scenario is only possible in the same sense that, again, it's possible that the ghost of Alfred Hitchcock is rocking out in the corner. It is not evidently true, and there is no reason to believe that it's true, and unless the apologist can present even one piece of evidence to indicate that it might be true, then there is no reason to even entertain the possibility that reality isn't what reality is. My understanding of reality is built upon the Word of God, which is the basis of all understanding and truth. So we're right back where we started, with the empty, unsupported assertion that God is the basis of all truth.
Why don't you prove it?
But I don't believe that we're living in the Matrix. That's your worldview. To be fair, not all presuppositional apologists incorporate this into their scripts, but some of them do. The good old, my views might be absurd and fly in the face of all the evidence, but you are even sillier than I am because you didn't object strongly enough to a ridiculous hypothetical that I spent the first half of this debate arguing for without actually believing in myself.
Lies, deceit, creating mistrust are his ways now.
I really don't have much else to say about this argument. It's a complete nothing burger. It's nothing but the empty assertion that reality, B, cannot exist without a creator, A, and B exists, so there must be an A. These circular, sad arguments and crafty scripts and word games do not demonstrate that there's a God. Apologists, if you really want to convince anyone of your point of view, if you really want to do something more than compliment people who already believe the same things that you do, then I think it's time to retire the presuppositionalist argument. Unfounded assertions, like natural laws can only arise from a lawgiver, are just assertions. I could just as easily assert that natural laws only emerge via natural causes. That, too, if I were to just blurt it out without attempting to provide any evidence, would be a baseless assertion. But I think it would still be a more reasonable assertion inasmuch as we observe natural causes working all around us every day, while the existence of the supernatural remains to this day unverified. Christians, if you have any evidence for your point of view, I'm not talking about rhetorical arguments, but actual evidence, please start leading with that. If you don't, well then maybe it's time to start asking yourself, why do you believe what you believe?